Okay, everyone. So I am here to give you guys my thoughts on Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 25. Now, first of all, let me just say this. I know that this quote unquote, review is a little bit late. I do apologize for that. I was away from my computer at the moment when the chapter did get released. So that is, why this review is a little bit late. And again, I just want to apologize for that. But I am here and I am going to give you guys my thoughts on this chapter. We are going to go over it here in this video. And hopefully for the next chapter, I'm going to be more on time with my, review. And I am going to go back to, again, making more content covering Boruto moving forward. Again, now that I'm actually back home and I'm actually back at my computer. So let's go ahead and talk about this chapter. So this is chapter 25 titled Those Girls, and we definitely do have some stuff that we need to talk about. So first things first, we are back at the village, which we already knew was going to happen based on what was said at the end of the previous chapter. And here we finally get to see one of the people that were trapped turned into a tree by the awakened Shinju. Not only turned into a tree, but also turned into a Ten Tails clone. So yeah, this is, I guess, officially the end of Matsuri, which I did say in a video that just recently got released on my channel. I did say that, if this really is the end of Matsuri, if this really is the end of Ryu, which this chapter seems to suggest, then I'm going to be, pretty damn disappointed because I thought that there was so much more you could have done with those characters. And if this really is the end of them, then yeah, I'm just kind of disappointed that this is the case. But I mean, I knew that this was going to happen sooner or later. We did need to see one of the people turned into a Ten Tails clone get freed and, returned back home. But if I'm being honest, I didn't think it was going to happen so quickly. I thought it was something that they were saving for a little bit later down the road. And yeah, well, I guess I was wrong. And here we have one of them actually being freed. We have Moegi being freed. So we see the thorn soul bulb, be stabbed into, the tree and it be absorbed. And we see this weird pattern show up on the tree before Moegi gets released. And we see her get released from the tree. And she is, awake and she sees Konohamaru and everyone. And interestingly enough, after this happens, we see Boruto and he is floating up above and he is watching everything happen, and we see the speech bubble that has, the three dots, which usually tells us that the character is thinking. Now, to me, it's interesting because what this tells me, now this is just my thoughts on what is happening. Either this is Boruto just, watching what's going on, and, it's nothing more than that. He's just watching what's going on. He's seeing, Moegi be freed, and maybe he's a little bit remorseful because he was at one point really close to, Sasuke being freed because he had the Thorn Soul. He was close. And then, of course, we know Kawaki got in the way. And Jura, I think, even if Kawaki hadn't gotten in the way, I think Jura still would have stopped him. I don't think he would have allowed Boruto to be freed. And it's interesting to me because we still, or at least I'm still wondering, why did Jura allow Matsuri and Ryu to just be, removed? Like, why didn't he stop Konohamaru and what was his name, Oreya, from getting away with the Thorn Soul bulbs? Like, why didn't he stop them? Why didn't he save Matsuri and Ryu the same way he saved Hidari? Like, he specifically said that he did not want Hidari to be, removed from them. Like, he specifically went out of his way to save him. And I'm just wondering, like, why did he do that for Hidari, but he didn't do that for Matsuri or Ryu? I'm wondering, like, why is that the case? And, maybe it's tied into why Jura is always seen with Hidari. Like, is there something about him that we don't know? I mean, even Kashin Koji said that, in the futures that he saw, in one of them, Boruto managed to save Sasuke from the tree, but then after that, Jura killed him. So I'm just wondering, like, is there something going on there? Is there a reason why Jura seems to at least value Hidari more than the other awakened Shinju? I mean, one of the reasons that I could think of is that maybe, sorry, I just hit the mic, but maybe the reason why that's the case because Hidari was made using Sasuke's chakra, and as we know, like, Sasuke is different than, Moegi and Shinki, even though Shinki is pretty powerful and he does have, a pretty powerful ability. but like there's something about Sasuke making Hidari that Jura values more. Like, is there something Jura knows about him that we so far don't know yet? I don't know. That's just, again, what I'm speculating, but it just seems a bit weird to me that Jura seems to at least value Hidari more than the other Awakened Shinju. That's just what it seems like to me, because again, he went out of his way to save him, but not Matsuri and not Ryu. So again, I'm just wondering, and seeing Boruto here and seeing, or the other thing, the other thing that sort of comes to mind when I see this and how this is structured and everything is it makes me wonder that maybe Boruto knows something that we don't. Like, he's specifically paying attention to Konohamaru, like, embracing Moegi. And obviously on the surface, it seems like, oh, someone just got his friend back, someone who could have died. And, but maybe Boruto knows something that we don't. Maybe there's something going on that we are not aware of. And I don't know, again, that's just me sort of, speculating about what's going on. But, moving on, we get news from, Kankuro that Gaara is back in the hospital. So Oreya did manage to save Gaara and Shinki. It's even stated that he's been restored back to himself. So yeah, Ryu has been taken off the board. Well, I mean, I guess technically they could still come back. Like, he could still send claw grimes after Shinki and Moegi, and technically Matsuri and Ryu could still technically come back. Like, I don't think there's anything stopping that from happening. I don't know. Again, this is just me, just sort of, speculating on something that we, that we're getting right here. But then after he gets the news, he gets a visit from Sai, and he tells him that the elders are calling him. And I'm guessing they definitely do want to talk to him about what's been happening recently. The fact that, the fact that the Hokage, the Sand Hokage, was saved due to Boruto's help, and a member of the Leaf Shinobi was saved again, and one of the Awakened Shinju was destroyed thanks to Boruto's help. And I'm guessing maybe that's something they do need to discuss. I mean, they can't not discuss it, you know what I mean? And then we get to the hospital where we see Moegi being tended to, by Sakura. And we basically get the information that Moegi right now is basically very low on chakra. And not only that, but apparently she says her chakra flow is sluggish. And she says that, basically what the tree was doing, it was feeding off her chakra, which obviously we do know to be the case, because that's how Moegi was, or not Moegi, but that's how Matsuri was created. She was created using Moegi's chakra. So the tree was definitely feeding off of, Moegi's chakra. And this is interesting, right? Because we see what's going on with Moegi, and Moegi has only been in this tree for what seems like a couple of days, maybe a week, a few weeks, maybe. And she's already this, this low on chakra. So what the hell is going to happen to people like Sasuke and Bug? They've been in that tree for possibly years. I mean, Sasuke's been in that tree for at least 2 years. So what's going to happen to him if he gets freed? Like, will he even be alive? Is he going to have any chakra at all? Like, what's going to happen to him if he does get freed? Now, I'm guessing he's not going to die, because obviously, like, Sasuke, he needs to be alive, because Sasuke's chakra is creating Hidari. It gives Hidari his existence. So obviously he's not going to die. But like, what's going to happen to him when he gets freed if Moegi is already this, weak and this sluggish by being trapped in a tree for at most a couple of weeks, and Sasuke, who's been in that tree for who's been in that tree for at least a couple of weeks, or a couple of years. So like, what's going to happen to him? And then we get the moment where Sumire calls Sarada, out so they could have this conversation. This is where we get the confession from Sarada. And we see that Eida is definitely spying in on both of them, because of course she is. And, Sarada apologizes for, not being sensitive to, Matsuri's, or not Matsuri, excuse me, to Sumire's feelings. And then we get the, we just get more confirmation, or confessions from Sarada about what she's been feeling, how she's been, hiding from her feelings, basically things that we already knew from, her interaction with Ryu before she used her Mangekyo Sharingan power to, to kill him, basically. And, and throughout all of this, of course, Eida is still spying on them. And then it's just more of her, just again telling us things that we kind of already know. If I'm being honest, I'm not a big fan of, this part of the chapter, because it's just kind of just repeating things that we already knew. Obviously, like it's stating this to someone who doesn't know. So it's not that it, doesn't make sense. It's not a case where a character is repeating something to someone else that they should already be aware of. But the thing is, like, we as readers, we already know this because we read the previous chapter. So we already, know all these things. Like, she's just repeating information to us, or information that we already know to someone else. So again, to me personally, I'm just not a big fan of this, because it's just, again, stating things that we were already aware of. And that's when we get the confession from Sarada, and we get a full page, just a full page of her just, confessing to Sumire that she, feels the same way about Boruto, that, that Sumire feels like she likes Boruto just like Sumire likes him. And, obviously the full page is obviously to emphasize to us that this is a big moment to us from this character. And we do get a funny face from Eida, and her reaction to Sarada's confession, even though she was paying attention to the fight. So she should already know this, or is she just surprised that she confessed it to Sumire and she just did it so, casually? And yeah, she just goes on to say, like, her liking him is not going to stop her from, being Hokage, which is, of course, it's good, not letting herself be, defined by her, romantic feelings, which is, of course, always good for a character. I mean, one thing that honestly always annoys me about characters, specifically with female characters, I did notice that this is like a pattern with female characters more than, male characters, where they basically get defined by their romantic feelings. They basically get reduced down to, oh, you're just, the romantic interest, and there's like nothing really more to you. And, maybe we'll add like a couple of things here and there that are not, that are not anything to do with your, the person that they're interested in or their feelings. But it feels like you, as a viewer or as a reader, you can tell that, okay, like now their main, sorry, I keep hitting the microphone, but basically your main purpose is just to be the romantic interest in the story, to, in this case, the main character. But yeah, I do like this. I do like that they're not defining Sarada by her feelings for Boruto. Like, she still has other things in her life that she wants to do that have nothing to do with romance. And yeah, we get, basically a sort of like them coming together and just accepting that, okay, like this is where they are now in their friendship. And basically, like, Sumire tells her that, okay, well, I'm not going to back off. I'm still going to try to, try to, of course, get with Boruto, just like, Sarada just told her that she wanted to. And we just get this funny moment from Eida where she's basically just pissed that she's not involved in any of this. And she talks to the sensory unit to get her to come into contact with, Sumire and Sarada. And I'm just wondering, like, what the hell is she even going to say to them? And then we get to the next interesting part about this chapter, which is we see Himawari training with Kurama. And it's interesting because, the training that she's getting from Kurama is obviously different than what, Naruto got from Kurama, where at first he had to, like, basically wrestle to gain access to Kurama's chakra. And he only had access to one half of Kurama's chakra. And here she has access to all of it. And especially, like, or more importantly, I would say, is she actually has his cooperation. He's willing to actually work with her. He's willing to help her. And what's interesting is that the lesson that he's trying to teach her, and this is what I think is interesting, is he is trying to tell her that you need to basically take all the things that you learned as a shinobi and you need to basically throw them out the window, because what you are trying to learn is a way of fighting that is different from a shinobi. It's different from a biju, or not exactly, but also different from a jinchuriki. You're not a human who is utilizing tailed beast chakra. You need to think like you are chakra itself. Stop thinking of fighting like a shinobi. Think more of fighting as if you are chakra itself. And he's basically trying to teach her all this, and she's basically she's not getting what he's saying. Like, she's trying to tell him that, look, I'm a shinobi. I know how to fight with chakra control. And he's telling her, no, you're not getting it. Okay. Don't think like a shinobi. Don't think like a jinchuriki. think like you are a biju, because this is something Jura himself even said. Like, you're not human, you're not a Jinchuriki, you're something that's closer to a tailed beast. You have to start thinking like them. And he even tells you, yeah, here it is. Forget everything you know. Think of yourself as a personification of chakra, chakra in human form, and then just move on from there. And she's like, okay, but how do I do that? And Kurama just gets frustrated and says, all right, that's it. Enough for today. Just go away. Let me get some sleep. Which I do wonder what it's like for Kurama to get essentially to, if I can just be blunt, to get to like sort of dunderheads when it comes to like when it comes to training, when it comes to like being taught. Like, basically, if you think about it, Kurama right now is sort of going through what Jiraiya went through during the 2-year time skip, or the 2.5-year time skip, when he was training Naruto, where he realized that, oh my god, this guy knows next to nothing. I have to teach this guy. Like, and it was probably like really annoying for him, because imagine how far Naruto would have progressed had he already had a grasp of the basics. You know what I mean? You know, going into his training with Jiraiya. But Naruto didn't really have a lot of that, you know, because he wasn't really taught. And it's because, you know, he grew up with everyone shunning him, ignoring him. No one really paid him any attention. And maybe if they had, when he started training with Jiraiya, by the time he got back to the village, he would have been way farther ahead than he was in the, you know, in the story. So I don't know. I think it's funny. And we see Boruto watching all of this. And what's interesting about this is, first of all, he's in the village, so obviously he's masking his chakra. But, you know, even if he is doing that, Kawaki could obviously still sense him. So Kawaki probably already knows that Boruto is here in the village, which, you know, would make sense, because he, you know, I'm guessing he did go with them back to, you know, the Leaf Village. Although I am wondering, like, where is Kawaki right now? Like, what's he doing? Did he go back to Amado? Is he talking to him? Or did he maybe go somewhere else? But we see Boruto, and he is watching them, and then he goes into the you know, basically he does what we saw Himawari do, which is he closes his eyes and goes into this mental space of his, just like we saw with Naruto, and just like we just saw with Himawari, and basically any like tailed beast we've seen in the Naruto manga, where they go into the mental space that they go to whenever they talk to them. But here he is talking to Momoshiki, so we see the return of Momoshiki. So all the people online who kept saying, where's Momoshiki? Where's Momoshiki? Well, here it is. He's finally here. And this is definitely going to be the thing that people are definitely going to talk about for a while, until after up until the newest chapter comes out. So we get to Momoshiki, and he's wondering, of course, you know, why is Boruto here? Why is he looking for him? Why did he come here to talk to him? And Momoshiki is essentially depressed, which is, I'm not going to lie, it's kind of funny to see. And basically he says that he honestly should have just left well enough alone. He should have just allowed Boruto to die, because at least that way he can finally be free of Boruto. And obviously the reason at the time why he did it is because he knew that if Boruto dies, then Momoshiki dies, and that's it. Like, he disappears. Or he goes into, you know, the afterlife, like with pretty much anyone else who dies in the Naruto universe. And he says, I should have just let that happen. I shouldn't have interfered. And because of that, I am now stuck here. And I've been stuck here for years. And it seems like there's no chance of me taking over. So now I'm just stuck inside this teenager. And I'm stuck just waiting for this guy to finally get killed. And he even talks about how, like, there was a moment where it seemed like you were about to die, and of course it didn't happen, so now I'm still stuck here, so now I'm even more depressed. And I'm sorry, there's something funny about this, you know, seeing Momoshiki just sulking and just wishing that this guy would just die already, so I can finally be free. And then Boruto tells him why he is here. And he tells him that he's here because he wants Momoshiki's help. And Momoshiki understandably tells him to fuck off, basically. And Boruto essentially offers him a deal. Basically, he tells him that if I could use your power to take down Jura, then I will give you my body. Now, obviously, Boruto's not going to give him his body free of charge. He's obviously going to set some conditions, like, you know, you can have my body, but only if you agree not to hurt any of my friends, to leave the village alone, or just the world alone. I'm guessing, he's probably going to set some conditions. And what I'm guessing is going to happen is Momoshiki will probably agree, but he's going to find a loophole. You know what I mean? Because we usually see these in stories. Like whenever we see it's either the main character or anyone else basically making a deal with a villain or a monster, and they say, because usually the monster also wants something, and they'll say, okay, I will give you what you want, but only on these conditions. And the monster agrees, or the villain agrees, but then they always find a loophole. Like, just to give you an example, if there are any, actually, you know what? I'm not going to say it because no, that's actually a kind of a spoiler for another series if I were to say what happened. But I'm not going to say anything else. Although I'm willing to bet some people who are watching this probably know what it is that I'm talking about. So I'm just going to leave it there. And the last thing we see here in the chapter is we cut back to Sarada and Sumire, and we essentially see that they are, continuing their conversation, and they're basically pointing out how Boruto most likely has no idea how they actually feel about him, because, like a lot of shonen characters, they are pretty dense when it comes to the the emotions of the female lead or whoever their romantic interest ends up being. They're always oblivious to it until a specific time where they do find out about it. Usually it's at the end of the series or at some point, closer to the end of the series. And then usually, we have that time skip, and then, they're together and all that stuff. And I do find it interesting that in the last couple of pages, and we see that Boruto offering the deal to Momoshiki, and we see this look from Momoshiki, and then the last thing we see is Sarada and Sumire. So I'm guessing, this is just a guess, this is just, me theorizing, but I'm guessing what's probably going to happen is Boruto is going to offer this deal to Momoshiki, and something is going to happen to either Sarada and Sumire. And if I had to guess, it's going to be Sumire, because I think there's no way in hell something's going to happen to Sarada. Like, I don't see that happening. Okay, Boruto is not the type of series to actually do anything like that. It's just not. So I don't see anything happening to Sarada, but I'm willing to bet something happens to Sumire because of this deal that Boruto made. And I think that's probably going to be what sends Boruto over the edge. That someone, he cares about is going to end up dying because of this deal, because he, in a moment of desperation, made a deal with the devil, basically. That's essentially what this is. Boruto essentially just made a deal with the devil, and it is going to end up, getting him in, what am I trying to say? It's going to end up backfiring, is essentially what I'm trying to say. It's going to end up backfiring, and it's going to drive him crazy, and that'll be, I'm guessing, the moment that Momoshiki will need to finally take over, because they did kind of set that up. They kept talking about it. So I'm guessing it's probably going to happen at some point, or if not, then I'm not going to lie, that's another thing where I'm going to be a little bit disappointed. But if it's going to happen, and then, eventually Boruto will get his body back and everything will be okay. But I'd be really disappointed if it doesn't happen, because they did kind of set it up. Anyway, overall, I thought the chapter was, it was okay. It was fine. Again, there was that one part that I wasn't really a big fan of, because, again, it was kind of just repeating information. I feel like they could have done all of that if they just had a panel where they make it clear that, okay, they had that conversation, off screen, and just like one or two like sentences from Sarada and Sumire that clarifies to us, oh, she told her what she, already said during the, what was it? Was it chapter 21? Yeah, it was chapter 21, I think it was. It was chapter 21 where she said everything about, her feelings about Boruto and why she's been denying them and all that stuff. Like, just a couple of lines that says, okay, she told her about this, and that's it. We could have moved on from there. And we could have like used those pages on like literally anything else. Because I feel like all that was just kind of a waste of like pages and panels and all that stuff. Again, that's just, my feelings on it. If you disagree, that's fine. But I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, as always, guys. And if you like what you see here on my content, on my channel, you know what to do. Make sure to hit the like button, share this video. Please, guys, subscribe if you are new. Ring the bell for notifications. And I hope I'll see you guys for my next video. Bye for now.